Greetings, everyone. It's 9 o'clock Mountain Time, or all sorts of times, depending on what area of the world you are from. And welcome to our 4th live Google Hangouts on air. I'm just going to go ahead and wait for some folks to join us. But once they do, please make sure you post your questions in the Q&A box and give us a chance to help answer your questions. Both I can as well as your colleagues. So we'll just go ahead and wait for everyone to join. Hello, everyone. Just once again checking in. Right now we have no viewers, so we'll hang out until about 9:10 Mountain Time, which is where I live in, or 8:10 Pacific Time, and see if anybody joins us. If nobody joins us, we will go ahead and have one more session next week. So if you do join, please post any questions. Oh, we've got a joiner. So if you have any questions, you're our first viewer, please feel free to enable Q&A. It's on your left-hand menu. If you click on the Q&A button, it will then open up a right-hand bar where you can ask any questions that you'd like to ask. And tonight we're just all about answering questions, so I'll hang out until we have any questions. And if we don't have any questions, then we'll just go ahead and end our session early. So right now we still just have one viewer. Once again, if you've got questions, whomever you are, please feel free to post them in the Q&A window. I was just checking, now we've got 2 viewers, great. I was just checking the discussions in Coursera, and there are no questions posted there to be answered tonight. But if you, our 2 viewers, have any questions, please don't hesitate to post them in the Q&A window. That way I can see your questions and answer your questions. So if you click in Q&A, and to do that, just click on QA on the left-hand menu. And if you don't see your left-hand menu, just hover over the left-hand side of your screen, and that will then prompt that Q&A and a bunch of other icons to appear on your left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, we'll see a text box area where we can answer any questions. Or if you just want to say hello, feel free to use the Q&A to say hello. You do need to be logged into Google Plus in order to utilize the Q&A. So you would need to have a Google Plus account to do that. If you're just watching through YouTube, then you won't be able to actually post any of those questions. And the way we've structured these sessions is to be focused on answering questions that you may have. I don't have any content that I'm particularly delivering. I just wanted to be here to help answer questions, coach if there's questions related to the course or how to work through the course, and just give everybody a chance to try out Google Hangouts on air. So like I said, if you've got any questions, feel free to post those. Otherwise, I'll hang out for about 5 more minutes. And then if there are no questions posted, we'll just wrap up the session. Since I do have, and I don't have any viewers now, so we'll give everybody about 4 more minutes and then we'll wrap up if we don't have any questions. I will make a few reminders for my one viewer. Please make sure if you want to do the peer assessment that you submit it by Tuesday night, 11:55 Pacific time. That way it gets submitted into the collection and then it will be divvied up among your peers, and you will then the next morning, Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, be able to review at least 3 other of your colleagues' work. So if you do want to do that peer assessment, make sure that you do it by Tuesday night Pacific time so that you can start reviewing Wednesday morning. The peer assessment is, as I've mentioned before, unfortunately one of those things that no matter how much I want to help people when they have to submit late, I can't because of the way the technology works. So that's the one hard deadline to be really careful of. And so we have 2 viewers. It's 9:07 Mountain Time. That's the zone that I live in. I live in Utah. And this is really about just a Q&A session. So I look for questions both in our Coursera course as well as in posted here using the Q&A tool. And those are the questions that I answer. I don't have any particular content that I do in the Google Hangouts. This is really a chance for you to try out Google Hangouts on air. And once again, just post questions that you may have that I could answer. So we'll hang out here. I know I've got 2 viewers, but if you don't have any questions that you want answered, like I said, we'll hang out for a couple more minutes and see how it goes. But then we might just end the session early if no one's got any questions. So I'm just hanging out. And making sure, like I said, nobody's posting anything in the Coursera course. And I'll keep double checking the Q&A, but I don't see any questions yet. Let's see if I click nope. I still don't see any questions yet. So for my 2 viewers, post a question, say hello if you'd like. If not, like I said, we're going to wrap up in 2 minutes or so if nobody has any questions. Okay, so we still just have 1 viewer, and we're almost at 9:10 my time, so 10 minutes into a 30-minute session. So I am going to give everybody a minute or 2 more, and then I'll probably hop off just to warn you, my viewers, since we don't have any questions. So I see we have 2 viewers. If you've got any questions, please post your questions. This session is all about answering your questions. It's a office hours type session or a Q&A session. I don't have any content particularly that I want to share, so I want to make sure though that you have a chance to interact with me and ask any questions that you may have. It also gives you a chance to play in Google Hangouts on air and try it out, and it gives you a chance to meet your colleagues. So, question, wonderful. There's a mention about competency-based learning in the reflection session. I notice this is getting more important. I wonder how effective it would be to gear an online course towards competency-based, like chemical lab activities. That's a great question. Competency-based learning, and since I just have 1 viewer, but somebody might watch this recording after the fact, competency-based learning is focused rather than on outcomes or learning objectives. It's focused on explicit competencies. So by the end of a learning experience, you should be able to do certain competencies. And it's becoming really popular, particularly in the US, where there are whole programs and degree programs where people come into higher education working towards a collection of competencies and then graduating with a degree based on those competencies, as opposed to more of a traditional learning objectives or learning outcomes setting. Interesting thing about competencies is oftentimes students can prove their abilities through any kind of activity. So it's not a traditional, you come into class, you sit for certain hours, you listen to lectures, you do labs, you interact with your faculty. It's more about you as an individual learner go off and do work, and then based on that work, you can then either pass out of that competency or prove that you have that competency. So a lot of times in competency-based programs, people will get tested out as soon as they come in based on their work experience or professional experience they may have before coming into the program. And then other competencies they'll have to really develop. And it's interesting that you mentioned chemical lab activities. So the competency-based approach is becoming more and more popular in fields where you need very explicit hands-on skills, or you need to be able to prove that you can manage your work in a professional environment. It's not so much about the soft skills, although that's important. It's not so much about the liberal arts or sort of a broader education, but it's about having a very explicit set of skills which are translated into competencies, and then coming into the professional workplace being able to do those. And yes, transitioning to a competency-based approach. You can even implement small competency-based things in your program. Oftentimes problem-based learning lets you do that. Any kinds of hands-on lab activities, skill-based activities, simulations, things like that can really drive towards a competency-based experience. And so you can slowly bring those in or very quickly bring those into any individual course or program. And competencies can often be proven online depending on the particular set of skills. So if you're looking at an entirely virtual program, competency-based lends itself really nicely to that, at least for a good portion of the competencies that someone might need to accomplish for a degree. So yeah, I think it's a great thing towards starting to gear your work, your profession towards. I think we're going to see more and more and more of competency-based learning as a method of shortening the gap between education and the workplace. I know in the US, and there are other countries as well, that are really concerned about the ability to take somebody from an education experience and bringing them right into an effective workplace environment. And how do we shorten that? You know, that's not matching what our employers are asking for based on what our students are graduating with. So competency-based really does help bridge that gap if it's done well. And so it's definitely something to explore. And I think we're going to see more and more and more of it. And we're going to see more validity related to it. For a long time, competency-based approaches were thought of more as ways to justify a degree, but not as rigorous as the traditional academic experience. And the more workplaces appreciate competency-based programs as opposed to traditional programs, the more we're going to see the value or the branding associated with a competency-based program. So it's a great question. Thank you so much, Jan. So I've got 2 viewers. Do you guys have any other questions that you'd like me to answer while we're in here together? It's a small group. It's partially probably because it's a holiday in the United States, and I do have about 40% of the students from the US in this course, so that might be part of the reason why we don't have very many people attending. But I was trying to play with times of day. I'm wondering if you're from Singapore, Chan, because I think that'd make it like 9 a.m. your time or 10 a.m. your time. And I know I've got a really strong contingency from Singapore, which is really exciting for me. So anyway, if you guys have any other questions, or ladies have any other questions, post them in here. Otherwise, we'll probably wrap up in just a few minutes since it looks like it's just the 3 of us tonight. And I'm continuing to check in our discussion forums to make sure there aren't any other questions. I looked earlier today to make sure there wasn't anything that was pressing for anybody. I think I've answered almost everybody's questions. There are some questions about the practicum, but I unfortunately can't answer those, and I've asked somebody from the program to actually answer those. But it looks like everything's been answered in our forums. And I don't know if you have any other questions. I'll give you guys a minute or two more, and then we'll just wrap up for tonight. I'm glad I got to at least answer one question from this evening. And I will remind you, I'm not sure if you were my 2 viewers at the beginning of the session, but I will remind you that submit your peer assessment by Tuesday night, 11:55 p.m. Pacific time. So make sure that you submit your peer assessment so that you can get it in on time to get peer feedback. And then make sure that you review at least 3 of your colleagues in that peer feedback process. And during the review, as you've probably seen on the video, make sure to use the rubric as guidance for how you review your colleagues, and really try to give them feedback if you can, not just scores, because that can help them understand how to improve upon their lessons. And then if you want, feel free to post your lessons in the discussion forums as well to get feedback outside of the peer assessment process. So I encourage you to do that as well. And then we have a week and a half left of the course, which is super exciting, or about 2 weeks left of the course, which is really exciting. Make sure to get all your quizzes and your final assessment done by the end of the course. And then that way you can either move on to the rest of the program or get your certified, your certificate out of this program, or this course, I should say. All right, since there aren't any other questions and there were only 2 of us, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for coming tonight. This was awesome that you came tonight. Thank you for your great question, Chan. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for your continued participation in the course and joining us at 9 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 a.m. in Asia, and all sorts of hours all around the world. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening. Don't hesitate to post questions in the discussion forums. Join us for our live Twitter sessions. Join us next week for our last live Google Hangout session, and continue to do great work in the course. Have a great night. Bye.